Damn. Will, you got down here how? Same way you did, I suppose. You got the engine components. They'll have to wait. For now, we need to locate Don. A scene has rocked the whole TV industry. Lost in Space, once hailed as a science fiction family classic, suddenly found itself caught in the eye of a hurricane of controversy due to one on-screen moment. Nobody ever could have predicted that a scene between Dr. Zachary Smith and young Will Robinson would have the power to change the fate of the whole show. Absolutely brilliant. Will, shall we provide a demonstration? I don't know, Dr. Smith. We've only done it once. I'm sure. From starry glory, the series descended into crisis. What was a beloved program soon turned into a topic of bitter controversy, leaving a mark which still persists in the hearts of the audience. In a surprise one-off, Dr. Zachary Smith and Will Robinson co-starred in an episode that has since been recalled as one of the most influential in television during the decade. Harris, playing Dr. Smith, spoke to Will using an intimate tone and language many members of the production staff went on to describe as too intimate for family TV. Jonathan Harris himself subsequently confessed, "I knew I was overacting what the script called for, but that was the only way I could really bring the character to life." The cast and crew were shocked. Nobody had ever written that scene into the script. It was Harris's decision, his artistic gamble, that had moved the plot so radically. One of the crew members later described, "As soon as that scene was shot, we knew we had a problem. It wasn't so much the emotions that were being conveyed, but the way directly it broke with the conventional standards of American TV. After that, Dr. Smith became the focus of the show, no longer simply an antagonist. His bond with Will Robinson became not only a turning point in the script, but the center of a heated debate that would not die down. One insider revealed, "We had multiple meetings to decide whether to keep or cut the scene. In the end, it aired exactly as filmed. That choice carried serious consequences." Within weeks, reactions from sponsors and executives placed CBS in an extremely difficult position. Producer Irwin Allen subsequently conceded, "I know the value of art, but I knew at this time I had just gambled something which could ruin the whole show." And indeed, from that point forward, Lost in Space went into a slide from which it never bounced back. Jonathan Harris, looking back in an interview years later, confirmed, "If I had to do it again, I would still do it that way." Dr. Smith cannot be confined. He has to be different. Those are not just a description of his unshakable artistic vision, but also of the lasting burden of that fateful moment. Bill Mumy, the actor who played Will Robinson, also spoke about the moment. "Too young at that age to quite get it, but I could distinctly sense the tension on the set. Filming every day after that was entirely different. The mood had been changed forever." Although no one came forward to admit it publicly then, the destiny of Lost in Space had already been altered. That single questionable decision to broadcast the scene proved to be the last straw, subsequently recalled by both Harris and Mumy as an unforgettable benchmark. Although Lost in Space went on with its planned shows, everyone knew that the countdown had started. Harris would later say, "We opened a door that television of that era was not ready to embrace." One thing is certain, the scene left a permanent mark. It not only shaped the fate of the show, but also became a lasting reference point whenever Dr. Smith and Will Robinson were discussed, even decades later. From that point on, it wasn't just about a character, but about Jonathan Harris himself, the man whose decisions set the world at pause and discussing. Between talent and taboo, Lost in Space's name became forever linked with Harris. Born to an immigrant family in the Bronx, Harris had long been remarkable both for his singular talent and for his insistence on defying the tight molds of television. Prior to becoming Dr. Smith, Harris had led a secure acting and television career. But with Lost in Space, he would rise to a level of power he had never before experienced. What distinguished Harris was the bold manner in which he reinvented Dr. Smith. Written originally as a hard-edged, single-dimensional villain, the character turned flamboyant, witty, unpredictable, and perilously attractive under Harris's direction. He introduced comedy flourishes, flamboyant tones, and a touch of the theatrical that rendered Dr. Smith the show's anchor, surpassing the producer's expectations. Harris never showed regret. In a subsequent interview, he said, "If Smith had only been a villain, I'd have been forgotten. I wanted Smith to live on in everyone's memory." That remark demonstrates his self-assurance and his commitment to making an artistic mark. The notorious scene put Harris in the limelight of appreciation and criticism. While some appreciated his brilliance, others blamed him for overdoing things. Yet Harris stood firm. One colleague once remarked, he knew the risks, but he never backed down. For him, Dr. Smith wasn't just a part, he was a legacy. The character continued to dominate his life. Although he had a successful voiceover and television acting career after Lost in Space, Dr. Smith was always in the background. Harris took it as a blessing, though. "I'm glad the world remembers me because of Dr. Smith. That's my legacy," he once stated. Off-screen, Harris had a down-to-earth personal life. He got married early and established a strong, durable family. His close friends and family portrayed him as a reliable, committed man, anything but the conniving Dr. Smith. This equilibrium served to weather the tempests of fame and scandal. In retrospect, colleagues and critics concurred that Harris redefined the television villain. He demonstrated that villains could be multidimensional, layered, humorous, and intriguing. His efforts had a lasting impact on producers and writers, creating characters years after Lost in Space went off the air. For Harris, the objective was always the same: making a character indelible in the minds of audiences, and in this, he succeeded entirely. Dr. Smith became inseparable from Harris himself. Millions of people recall him, not just as an actor, but as a creator of one of television's most indelible characters. "Acting isn't just reading lines, it's making people believe," Harris once said. That one infamous scene validated his credo and seared his name into television history forever. Bill Mumy, making his entrance into Lost in Space as a teenager, would also bear the role of Will Robinson for the rest of his life. With his wholesome image, he became a generation's icon of innocence. However, following the scandalous scene with Harris, his career and personal life changed. Mumy frequently pondered how early in his life his career molded him. "I learned to handle pressure at a very young age. Each day on the set was an ordeal, but I knew we were building something great. What made it great was his inseparable friendship with Harris." Off-camera, Harris was a mentor, helping Mumy navigate the pressures of coming up on the set. One coworker testified, "Bill had Jonathan with him all the time. He wasn't a co-star, he was a guardian." But with that came a burden. The episode that connected them created a legacy Mumy could never shake. "I love Will Robinson, but it's also a burden. It took years to prove I had other talents," he once confessed. Mumy did eventually branch out, composing music, books, and taking on projects beyond acting. Nevertheless, fans always associated him first and foremost with Will Robinson. Domestic life provided stability, and he freely attributes his wife and kids with keeping him grounded during the heavy hand of fame. He still accepts Lost in Space events, upholding the legacy rather than eschewing it. He frequently spoke of Harris with great respect. "Jonathan molded a part of who I am. I couldn't say otherwise." Off-screen, on-screen, and in real life, their relationship remained as important. Now, Mumy is the lasting legacy of a childhood role, both a blessing and a burden. He is both a witness to and a symbol of how a single performance can stand as a life's defining moment. For him, Will Robinson's shadow persists, but so does pride in having contributed to one of TV's most iconic moments. The repercussions of that infamous scene extended far beyond what was presented to the audience on screen. Offstage at Lost in Space, there was an intense, silent battle for power. As fans fervently argued about the relationship between Dr. Smith and Will Robinson, the cast and crew were making decisions that would determine the survival or the demise of the show. Producer Irwin Allen, a man very familiar in Hollywood for his forceful and firm direction, suddenly found himself under great stress. He realized that the show was going in a direction never intended. As noted by one of his most close associates, Allen confessed in private, we're on a risky course, but if we attempt to turn back now, we may be burying years of work. It was the sort of situation no producer wanted to confront. Finally, Allen decided to leave Dr. Smith just where Harris had redefined him. But that came at a steep price. Within the cast, anger started to seethe. Guy Williams, the actor playing Patriarch John Robinson, became increasingly frustrated. In his view, the show, once about the Robinsons' fight for survival, was devolving into something else entirely. One of the cast members later remembered, Guy felt the show wasn't about the family anymore. It had become the Jonathan Harris stage play. Williams wasn't the only one. Don West actor Mark Goddard complained regularly about his own role being pushed to the sidelines. The increased discontent fueled tension on a set that was already under strain. Jonathan Harris was the focal point of it all. Instead of avoiding the strife, he worked toward it. He was aware that the spotlight was on him, and he maximized every chance to beef up Dr. Smith's profile. A production staffer once said, Harris wasn't only playing his role. He was in all of the creative discussions, always trying to come up with ways to make Smith larger, more vibrant, and more integral. In practice, Harris had gone from simply being an actor to being an unseen co-creator of the show. His presence reverberated throughout the scripts, tone, and direction of entire episodes. The CBS officials, observing from the top, noticed that the situation required intervention. The network was facing pressure from advertisers, family organizations, and stakeholders to keep the family-friendly reputation of the series intact. As reported at the time, CBS gave them a warning. The show would have to strike a balance between entertainment and social mores. It was a message directed at both Harris and Irwin Allen. Instead of public admonishments, however, the warnings were accompanied by discreet adjustments, streamlined budgets, diminished reliance on costly visual effects, and scripts delicately cut to prevent further embarrassment. A member of the editing team later divulged, we weren't sacrificing story ideas. We were chopping pieces just to be safe. It was all about control, not creativity. Even within those boundaries, Harris would not alter his style. He kept on playing Dr. Smith in the same flamboyant, erratic fashion that had caused the tempest in the first place. His quick wit and overpowering presence kept Dr. Smith right in the middle of the show, whether CBS approved or not. In the meantime, the backstage environment deteriorated. Resentment among some cast members grew stronger. Some actors felt overshadowed, even abandoned, as if the soul of Lost in Space